Today we're joined by Heidi Larew. She's a clinical supervisor and is the Art Therapy Program Coordinator at Alta Care Group in Youngstown, Ohio. She's supported by the Mahoning County Mental Health and Recovery Board, and the Helms Foundation provides art supplies for clients and art therapy programs throughout Mahoning County. Heidi has been fortunate to work with them on their mutual goals of making art therapy available in this community. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing this.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I've been working out of home doing teletherapy, art therapy for a couple of months, and I've been really enjoying it.
And how is teletherapy going, making that transition from in-person therapy to doing things instead of face-to-face in people's homes?
I can't believe how well it's going. We've been doing this, like I said, for a couple of months. And initially there were a couple of concerns. One was, is insurance going to cover it? And so far insurance has been covering it, so that's great. There were a lot of things of like teaching people the different approaches, like whether they're going to use Zoom or other types. The most common that we use is Doxy.me, that's HIPAA compliant, so that's good. Those kind of concerns had to be worked out. And then I had to teach the families that it's a parallel process of boundaries, helping them develop a boundary in their own home so that they can use teletherapy in a way that's really effective and there aren't other people coming and going throughout the session.
That's great. Yeah. How is the actual art transitioned? So the piece of art therapy, how has that transitioned from being an in-person thing where you're providing your clients with materials and activities to being able to keep that important piece of art therapy while are joining you from their homes?
It's ironic. The art therapists, many art therapists I have known are people that have come before me. And so we might not have been up on technology as well as I would have liked, at least myself. Technology wasn't my big thing. But the interesting thing is that we are a very creative group of people that is willing. And when something needs to be done, we figure out a way to get it done. So we've been able to figure it out. And my clients have done everything from, I have one client who's a young African-American woman who's doing large canvases of African women related to her heritage. We're having a lot of racial issues in our world recently, to say the least about that. And so that's given her an outlet. I've had kids who do artwork using the little fortune teller papers that you scooch around, you fold them a bunch of different ways, and then on the insides they might do things like imagery around coping skills, all kinds of stuff. All you need is, a piece of paper and a pencil, but I have someone who's been using clay, lots of different means, and I think that the common denominator is willingness, people being eager and willing and creative. One example would be journals. Sometimes they'll do artwork in session with me while we're on teleconference, but sometimes they will do things between sessions. And so they might do their artwork in their journal and then show it to me in session. One material that I'm just getting ready to start using is masks, and I would like to demonstrate that for you today. I have one that hasn't been used at all, so I have that here to show you, the outside and the inside. People can get these by going to a store with a mask on and, social distancing. But even better, they can have them sent to their homes. And you can do a very similar project with just a paper bag and do some inside and outside concepts. So you don't have to do it that way, but visually I think a lot of people find the mask to be interesting. So I thought I would show you an example of one that I have started. This would be This is one aspect of it. Like if you were feeling really intensely angry or frustrated, that sort of thing, you might do something like this. Everybody does it differently. And then this is an outside. That's just the start to it. Another thing about teletherapy that I just want to go back to for a minute is that I have found that my clients are incredibly intentional about their sessions, partly because I have encouraged them to do that. And I think even more intentional than when we were in the office. It was very therapist guided, or more so than with teletherapy. It's this is your time, we're face to face right here. And there's a level of intentionality that at least for the, I'd say young teens, through adulthood, goes quite well. And then with the younger kids, they might need a little shorter session or some additional adult support. But I would like to show you the masks today.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see them. So what is the purpose behind the mask intervention?
With the mask interventions is to help the individual develop insight about themselves. It could be, when I say develop insight, like have an increased awareness of themselves. Some things like how their own thoughts, feelings, and actions relate to one another, like patterns in their lives, in their relationships, those sorts of things. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna start, putting some paint on the palette here. This one's kind of goofy. So you say, I would say to the individual, this is your opportunity to express yourself however you would like. And sometimes people use art to share how they're feeling or explore their thoughts and feelings in ways that words alone might not get to those same needs. So oftentimes I'll say to people, let's start. I think it would be good if you started with the inside. And the reason is that it's hard to hold the material and do the outside first. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those like kind of executive functioning things that I try to help people think through how to do this in a way that will be most successful for them. One aspect of the mask making is, so I'm going to start in here. One aspect is, are we going to do this as an art as therapy type approach or an art psychotherapy approach?
And what's the difference between those, the art as therapy and the art psychotherapy? What are the different benefits that you can get from using this intervention to explore both of those?
If I was working as a therapist from an art as therapy approach, I would be present with the client while the client did their artwork. And whatever came up is what would come up. With the art psychotherapy approach, we're looking more directly at issues. So this intervention itself, just the fact that it has the directive of inside what you have inside and on the outside what you have outside, lends itself more toward the art psychotherapy approach. Some people will put really intense feelings on the inside, and they'll have things on the outside that, the way they share themselves with the world, and that whole idea of having a mask. But some people, it just kind of depends on how I present it and who I'm working with. Some, it might be a little bit more like, there are some things that are a boundary that we have that make sense for a certain reason. Like when you're at work, in certain work contexts, it might go better if you're not always talking about things like politics or your dating relationships or your finances. So that would like kind of just get at like boundaries, and that might fall under more of a cognitive behavioral art therapy style. I think it depends a lot on the client, like, right, just that person and what their needs are right then. So there are some people who they really can't do something, deep or heavy, and it just benefits them to put paint on a project and get it done in an organized way and have something that looks okay by the time they're done. And just the fact that they concentrated for, even 20 minutes is progress. And then there's some people who they've had a lot of the same kind of issue come up in their life over and over again, and they can't figure it out. They don't know what's going on with them. And it helps them to have this time. And they might work on something like a mask for weeks. This one that I'm working on, I'm just putting some colors down, but I'll send you pictures later because I'm going to do it in phases. And then you might have someone who just thinks in a really artistic storytelling kind of manner, and they don't have an outlet, or they don't have someone who would spend that time really listening in that detail. And doing the artwork lets them sit with their emotions, their experiences, and accept where they are, and also have someone to witness that with them. We'll start working on the outside a little bit.
What about this mask making process is beneficial to the client in exploring these emotions, specifically in the context of a therapy session? Because artwork is a creative outlet that people can, really express themselves and explore their feelings. What about being in a therapy session and combining art and therapy, specifically with this project, really be beneficial for clients?
So yeah, like you could potentially go get the materials and just do this on your own. But I think that having someone to witness the process with you or to process it afterwards can be very beneficial. It might help you to look at some ideas you hadn't thought of, and doing that with a trained art therapist is important. Also, you could have like really painful emotions come up and feel a little bit unraveled, and it helps to have an art therapist who can sit with you and be with you in that process, and support you as those things unfold, and then help you find a healthy outlook so that you're not left with just all these feelings all over the place, like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, and now it's out here and I don't know what it is. So having an art therapist there with you to go through that, I think, is very important.
Okay. So having the art therapist in this situation is kind of like helping them balance the emotions and come to terms with them in a constructive way, rather than just, having these come up during the session, that if they didn't have someone to guide them, they might be left feeling uneasy with these emotions then.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you're working on the front of the mask now. That's looking good.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thanks. Yeah. And it's fun, for a lot of people, seeing that I have an impact, that I'm watching something come from me, and putting my feelings out here can feel good. And then, finishing the project in a way that is satisfying to me, I can develop a sense of mastery over the materials. And also, like sometimes in relationships and expressing feelings with words, that's, I guess either way could be scary, but with the art, you can make so many mistakes and it doesn't matter. It's just art. It's okay. And you can keep the project and you can put like a title on it and a date and remember where you were at therapeutically and really, honor it in that way. Or you can say, this is a piece of material and it's okay. I don't have to keep it forever. I can be done with it and get my feelings out and then move on.
Do you think that, from either of those methods, the keeping it and holding on to those emotions and, or just memorializing that time in your life after you complete the project or getting rid of it, what's a way that a client could really benefit long-term from doing this project, like something constructive in their lives from doing the mask project?
That's a great question. One thing that people do sometimes is they do keep a record of their therapeutic journey, either by keeping the actual materials and then being able to look over it, the projects, or by taking photographs of it and being able to see, this is where I was at when I did that, a year ago, and look how far I've come. And, or maybe, oh gosh, I still have those same issues going on. It's been a year. I'm looking through these old things and, I thought I was going to work through that, but I didn't. So I'm going to revisit that.
For someone who still does struggle with those issues, and really has them for, like an extended period of time, who's looking back at the mask project they did, what's something that they can do to learn from the project and try to use that to make changes or to grow and overcome some of the negative emotions or states of mind that they struggle with?
I think one example with that would be if you looked back at it and you said, I could tell that I kept all these feelings inside and it weighed me down and I didn't find anybody that I felt safe other than a therapist to talk to about it. I have the same things going on. Maybe I want to start working on developing some relationships with people that I feel safe outside of therapy. Maybe I need to look at my support system and practice, learn some things about assertiveness and, like what I want to put out into the world. Instead of holding it inside of me, I want to do something beneficial with that. You could look back on your mask, and if you hadn't changed in that area, you might realize, I'm still doing this and I'd like to work on that. And then the next step with a therapist might be to explore, what are you doing to expand your support system, and what are you doing to make sure that those are safe people? What are your boundaries? Are there contexts where it's not appropriate to share everything that's going on? What are some assertiveness skills you could be using?
So it sounds like the therapist kind of helps the client learn how to express themselves in a constructive way and not keep things bottled up. And then if they're still struggling with those emotions, maybe it's because they haven't, integrated that style of expressing themselves into their regular daily life. And the mask project specifically looks like a good way to really express those emotions and coming away from it with that physical object. It sounds like a way to kind of learn and grow. And I think that's really interesting that you add in the part about these people and their interpersonal relationships, learning to express themselves with people around them that they might not have felt as comfortable before with expressing their emotions until they did a project like this with their therapist. That's
yeah,
really...
Thank you.
Can I see what you're working on there? It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, actually I'm just having fun with it right now. But I don't know what direction I'm going to go with it. I'll be doing a few, I don't know, I tend to do like lots of layers, and then as I sit with it myself over time, I might think about things that have to do with either, sometimes I'll do my artwork in the direction of something related to my professional life and my own professional development. And sometimes I'll do it, a little bit more related to personal, issues or concerns. And I just find it so satisfying myself.
This mask project seems like a really constructive way to help clients express their emotions and learn more about themselves on the inside, and the things that they might not be comfortable expressing in their everyday lives that they keep bottled up. So it seems like a really constructive way for people to learn to express themselves and develop from whatever's going on that they're not comfortable talking about usually. So it seems like a great thing that therapists should really consider integrating into their sessions to help those clients. That's awesome. So thank you for being here today. Is there anything that you'd like to add in closing?
The other thing I would like to add is that the reason that we started doing this was that the interview is Mary Sender at Tri-C in the Cleveland area had asked me if I would do this for one of her classes, and I am really grateful. She is a art therapy program coordinator there and a faculty member with Tri-C, Cuyahoga Community College. And so, thank you, Mary. I'm really glad that I got to do this. We've worked together off and on. I've done a few things for some of her classes over the years, and I'm really just grateful to be able to do this. So thank you.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.